Have you ever heard of Anita Garibaldi, the Brazilian revolutionary fighter called the Heroine of Two Worlds, or Clarice Lispector, the modernist author who was born in Ukraine and raised in Brazil, and who wrote some of the most haunting novels you will ever read? Well, after the fantastic response to my first video about remarkable Brazilian women, I couldn't wait to bring you more. There were lots of interesting suggestions in the comments, especially from my fellow Brazilians. And again, it was hard to choose. So if your favorites aren't here, don't worry, I'll probably be making a part 3 of this series soon. Drop me a comment if you have any suggestions of who I should include. So here is part 2, featuring 5 more women who made history but remain largely unknown, even in Brazil. We're looking at the lives of a pioneering nurse, an Afro-Brazilian author who reshaped literary conventions, and other remarkable people who challenged norms and changed history. Let's get started. Hello, lovely history fans. I'm Dr. Julia Martins, back with another exciting journey into Brazilian history. As a historian of gender and medicine who was born and raised in Brazil, I feel that I have a special connection to these stories. And given the incredible response to my first video, it's clear that you do too. So today we're uncovering the tales of more extraordinary Brazilian women whose achievements are barely whispered about, even back home. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more history content. Your support really means the world to me, and if you'd like to help keep these stories coming, please consider joining my Patreon. By the way, thank you so much to my Medici patrons, Greg, Katrina, and Undisclosed. Now, let's meet 5 more incredible women from Brazilian history. Starting off strong with a controversial one. I can already hear you typing how problematic she was in the comments. But hear me out. Keep in mind that we're talking about people who made history, not role models. So, meet Chica da Silva, a remarkable figure from 18th century Brazil, whose life story unfolds like a gripping historical drama. Born into slavery around 1732 in the diamond mining region of Minas Gerais, Xica cleverly used her relationship with João Fernandes de Oliveira, a wealthy Portuguese diamond merchant, to elevate her social status from enslaved woman to a high society lady. The 15-year-long relationship between Xica and João Fernandes was not just a personal alliance, but a strategic move that dramatically changed her life. Fernandes freed Xica from slavery, and together they had several children, 13 of them, I think, whom he fully recognized, so breaking the conventional social mores of the time. This union provided Xica with a unique position in society, which she leveraged to secure a future for herself and her descendants, even after João returned to Portugal. Xica's influence extended beyond her immediate family, though. She became a key figure in the local society of Vila do Príncipe, hosting extravagant parties that were the talk of the town. These gatherings were not just social events, but also a demonstration of her influence and her acceptance among the local elite. Yet, this acceptance was always conditional and fraught with the underlying tensions of race and class that pervaded colonial society. Moreover, Xica used her position to engage in philanthropy, particularly focusing on the arts and religious institutions, which further cemented her status in the community. If you've never heard of her before, you might be thinking, well, she sounds great. Why did I say she was a controversial character? Well, Xica's life was marked by stark contradictions. Despite her origins, she owned enslaved people, and it's believed that she freed only one of them during her lifetime. Her fortune was made by renting out these people to work in the mines. This part of her story highlights the difficult choices she faced and the complex strategies she employed to navigate the societal restrictions of colonial Brazil. It also reminds us that the individual rise to wealth and power of someone who is marginalized themselves doesn't necessarily translate to their communities of origin benefiting from this at all. To make things even more complicated, her story was mythologized in plays, novels, films, and even a very Brazilian telenovela, which made her a household name in Brazil. However, many historians have criticized these depictions, which fell on Familiar tropes of sexualizing women of color and forgoing historical accuracy and complexity for the sake of a compelling narrative. To be fair, though, the same can be said of many historical dramas. I'm looking at you, the Tudors. Chica da Silva's life and legend were far more than just her rise in social status. It was about navigating the intense complexities of race and class in a society that hardly left any room for mobility. Quite the challenge, wouldn't you say? Next, we turn to Anna Nery, often hailed as the mother of Brazilian nursing. Born into a wealthy family in Bahia in 1814, Anna's entry into nursing was driven by a profound sense of courage and patriotism, qualities that would define her legacy. When the Paraguayan War broke out in 1865, Anna, a widow with 3 grown children, made the unprecedented decision to volunteer as a nurse on the front lines. This was almost unheard of at the time for a woman of her social standing. Motivated by the loss of her husband and the involvement of her sons in the war, she felt a compelling duty to contribute to the war effort. So Anna organized a campaign from her home to gather necessary medical supplies before departing for the battlefield. Once there, Anna set up and managed hospitals under harrowing war conditions, caring for the wounded soldiers with such unwavering dedication and skill that she transformed the field of military nursing in Brazil. Her hands-on approach in the chaotic environment of war hospitals brought innovations in care procedures and hygiene practices, setting new standards for military medical care at the time. Anna Nery's contributions went beyond immediate medical actions. She also focused on educating and training other women in nursing skills, effectively laying the foundation for organized nursing practices in Brazil. Her commitment to teaching was instrumental in shaping the future of nursing in the country. Sadly, she lost one of her children fighting in the war. Her impact was so profound that after the war, the Brazilian government granted her a pension in recognition of her service. Further honoring her contributions, her legacy was immortalized when the first nursing school in Brazil was named after her, the Anna Nery School of Nursing, established in 1923, I think. She received many honors and accolades in her lifetime and after her death as well. She was even depicted in a stamp in 1967, which is definitely cool. Anna Nery truly transformed healthcare through her courage and unwavering dedication. It wasn't solely her medical interventions, it was her broader influence on healthcare practices and women's empowerment in Brazil. Her legacy continues to inspire nurses today, underscoring the vital role of healthcare professionals in times of crisis. Here we get to the Heroine of Two Worlds that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Let's meet Anita Garibaldi, a name synonymous with bravery and rebellion. Anita's story stretches from the rural landscapes of Brazil to the battlefields of the Italian peninsula, driven by a profound passion for freedom and justice. Born in 1821 in Santa Catarina, Brazil, Anna was a spirited young woman who defied the traditional roles expected of women in her era. And yes, she was called Ana Maria de Jesus Ribeiro at the time. Her life changed forever when she met Giuseppe Garibaldi in 1839 during his involvement in the Ragamuffin War. And I promise that's its real name, and I swear that when we study history in Brazil, it doesn't sound nearly as silly as that. Anyway, this was a rebellion that started in the province of Rio Grande do Sul, where I'm from, and it spread to Santa Catarina. It was a revolt against the Brazilian monarchy and the centralized government. Anita had been influenced by her uncle, who was a Republican, and so she was inclined to sympathize and join the rebels. Anita was not merely a spectator, though. She actively joined the cause, fighting alongside Garibaldi. It's worth mentioning also that Anna was married, but her husband had joined the Brazilian forces, and she described the marriage as a farce. It was Garibaldi who affectionately called her Anita, or Little Anna. Known for her fearless demeanor, Anita battled on horseback, even while pregnant, displaying a courage and skill that made her a legendary figure in the revolution. Honestly, how did she even have the energy and the strength to fight on horseback while pregnant? I could barely handle pregnancy yoga. In any case, Anita was captured in 1840, but she managed to persuade her captor to let her look for her husband's body on the battlefield, as Garibaldi was presumed dead. Once freed, she found a horse and she just ran away, rejoining Garibaldi after an arduous journey, which included crossing a river with her horse. After their child was born, the Brazilian army surrounded the house where Anita was, but she managed to escape, carrying her newborn. She waited for Garibaldi for days in the forest with her baby until he found them. But Anita's role as a revolutionary did not end in Brazil. Following the war, she accompanied Garibaldi to Uruguay, where he was in charge of the naval fleet during the conflict with Argentina, and later the couple went to Italy, where they became central figures in the struggle for Italian unification. There, she participated in critical battles, including the defense of Rome in 1849, where her bravery under fire further solidified her reputation as a formidable warrior. Anita Garibaldi's legacy is truly remarkable. Starting from a small town in Brazil, she became a central figure in revolutionary movements across Europe, alongside her husband, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Known for her bravery and dedication, Anita inspired many who fought for freedom, and she left a lasting mark on the fight for justice worldwide. Her story shows us how deep passion and determination can really make a difference on a global scale. Now, let's turn our attention to Maria Firmina dos Reis, a true pioneer of Brazilian literature and a trailblazer for racial and gender equality. Born in 1822 in Maranhão, she emerged as the first Afro-Brazilian woman novelist during a time when the voices of Black women were systematically silenced. Maria Firmina's seminal work, Úrsula, published in 1859, stands as a pioneering narrative in Brazilian literature. It's considered the first abolitionist novel in Brazil. This novel is significant not just for its literary merit — to be honest, I love a novel with a good love triangle — but for its profound social impact, as it confronts the horrors of slavery through its vivid depictions and empathetic portrayal of enslaved people. Úrsula diverges from the romantic novels typical of its time, instead offering a raw, unflinching look at the brutal realities faced by enslaved people in Brazil, thus making a bold statement against the inhumanity of the institution of slavery. She is still lauded as an inspiration for many Black writers in Brazil today, and rightly so. Beyond her contributions to literature, Maria Firmina was a visionary in the field of education. She was a teacher, and she was among the first to advocate for and implement free public education in Brazil, a radical idea long before it became a national standard. Her dedication to educational reform led her to establish a school in Maranhão in 1855, which was remarkable for its inclusive policy of admitting students regardless of their race or social standing. Plus, she was against corporal punishments for students, which were very prevalent at the time. She believed advising and talking to children to be better, which at the time many people thought to be a radical idea. Maria Firmina's efforts extended into music and poetry, further showcasing her versatile talents and commitment to cultural development. Her songs and poems, often imbued with themes of freedom and equality, resonated with her advocacy for abolition and social justice. She even composed an abolitionist hymn. Maria Firmina dos Reis made significant strides in challenging the norms of Brazilian society. She broke through the barriers of race and gender, and her work as an educator and author paved the way for discussions on equality. Her novels, particularly Úrsula, shed light on the harsh realities of slavery and sparked conversations about justice and human rights. Her efforts didn't overhaul the system overnight. How wonderful it would be if that was possible, but they certainly planted seeds for change and inspired others to think differently. Okay, we got to my favorite one. Possibly. I don't know. And if you've never read Clarice Lispector, you must, especially if you love reading Catherine Mansfield and Kafka and wondering about the meaninglessness of life. Not very cheerful, perhaps, but absolutely wonderful. And you can find many of her books in translation. Plus, how cool is this cover? Born in 1920 in Ukraine in a Jewish family, but raised in Brazil from a young age since her family fled religious persecution, Clarice revolutionized Brazilian literature with her unique style and deep psychological insights. Clarice's novels, such as The Hour of the Star, the very Kafkaesque The Passion According to G.H., and Near to the Wild Heart, are celebrated for their intense introspection and innovative narrative techniques. She had a distinctive way of exploring the human condition, using stream of consciousness and a prose style that broke away from traditional norms. Her writing tackles themes of identity, loneliness, and existential questions, especially from the perspective of women, pushing readers to rethink their own views of reality. Besides her novels, Clarice was also a skilled journalist and translator, showcasing her broad intellectual abilities. She even studied law, where she met her husband, who later became a diplomat. While the couple were living in Naples after the Second World War had ended, she volunteered daily at the American hospital, writing and reading letters for the wounded soldiers there, and helping the nurses. She eventually separated from her husband, though, since she was required to accompany him on his travels, and that prevented her writing career from progressing the way she would have liked. Also, the couple had a son who needed special care, and Clarice felt that it would be detrimental for him to frequently move from one place to another. In terms of her writing, Clarice's personal reflections with sharp observations on daily life and culture, demonstrating her acute awareness of the human condition, are fascinating. Like many women I mentioned here, Clarice Lispector also challenged traditional gender roles, both in her writing and through her public presence, transforming what it meant to be a woman writer in a male-dominated literary world. Her influence reaches far beyond Brazil, affecting writers and thinkers globally. Critics often compare her to literary giants like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce for her radical approach to narrative style and psychological depth, using everyday life as a backdrop. It's very much Mrs. Dalloway vibes, her writing. Clarice Lispector remains a literary visionary. Her skill in capturing complex human emotions and challenging traditional narrative forms has solidified her status both as a Brazilian icon and a global literary figure. Her works continue to inspire readers and writers worldwide, affirming her key role in modern literary discourse. Personally, I think that anyone who can make seeing a blind man chewing gum provoke the character and the reader to have a sort of epiphany and rethink their entire existence is someone worth knowing about. I just love uncovering these sort of often overlooked contributions of such remarkable women, some of whom may not be widely recognized even in Brazil. I'm eager to hear which of these figures intrigued you the most, so please share your thoughts in the comments. If you have any questions or want more information, just let me know. And who do you think I should include on part 3? I have a few candidates already, but I'd love to hear from you. I hope this video has given you new insights into Brazilian history. We've shared a range of stories today, from a pioneering nurse to a revolutionary literary figure. There are countless more tales of incredible people waiting to be told, and I'm excited about the possibility of exploring these in future videos. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Your support is truly invaluable, and if you're interested in helping further, please consider joining my Patreon to enable the creation of more history videos. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.